Let's have a sesh on pricing decisions. So how businesses make the decision about what the price will be. Two massive things for this. Number one is that the decision of whatever the price is going to be is either going to be internal or external. And what I mean by that is it's going to be something that's the business is in control of. It's in the business's control. Or it's out of the business's control. It's an external factor. And the other thing is that as a business grows, and note that it's in red, well, that's going to change what your pricing decision might be. Let's go through firstly the internal factors that will affect your pricing decisions. So things that are in the business's control. Number one, the objectives of the business. For example, the objective in the business might be to increase market share. And if you're trying to increase market share, you're probably going to reduce your price. Reducing your price, well, that's an example of potentially penetration pricing. So thinking about your pricing strategies, well, you might use penetration pricing in that respect. As the business grows, you might change your objectives, and you might change your objective from increasing market share to profit maximization, increasing profit. And in that case, you might want to adjust your price because that will affect your revenue and therefore your profit accordingly. And in this case, you might therefore change your pricing strategy from penetration pricing to competitive pricing. Maybe you're now in a market that is more saturated and you want to ensure that your price is roughly the same price as everyone else. So that's an example as the business grows, you're changing your objectives and therefore you are changing your pricing decision. Number two, production techniques. So a classic situation a growing business is faced with is that they'll change their operations, their production techniques will change from job production to flow production. And in changing to flow production, well, now that's likely that you're using more machines, more capital, and that will lead to economies of scale. And economies of scale means that you'll be able to reduce your average cost per unit. And as that reduces, so your costs are effectively reducing as your output's increasing, well, that's going to mean that you can actually make something cheaper. So you could potentially lower the price of what you're selling because it costs you less to make it, so therefore you make the price slightly less. Number three, it depends where you are in the product life cycle, and that's for you internally to do some research and work out where you sit within that. Let's go through the phases of the product life cycle. Firstly, you're in the introduction phase. And in the introduction phase, well, you've just been through the research and development of this new product. Well, you might want to recoup all that money that you've spent on the research and development. So initially, you're looking, potentially if it's a technological product, to do price skimming. You want to set that high price to get those people that are really keen to buy your product. But in doing that, you've set a higher price to pay off your research and development costs. Maybe you move, and as you grow, you move to the growth stage. And in the growth stage, it might be that you want to do some form of increasing market share, and therefore you're using penetration pricing. After that, you move into the maturity phase, and it might be, like I said before, that you want to have profit maximization, and you might change to competitive pricing. And then after the maturity phase, you move to the decline phase. And in the decline phase, well, you might have a range of products, a product portfolio. And you might decide that now that this one product in your range of products is in the decline stage, well, you could use that one product for a promotional technique. So maybe you could use loss leader pricing. So you are using that one product to get people, customers, into your shops or onto your websites, be it e-commerce or apps for m-commerce. And you'd use loss leader pricing for that strategy, part of that promotional mix. So that's how your pricing decisions will change as your business grows. That's likely you might change your pricing technique. Number four, product differentiation. So if you've put a lot of cash into trying to increase your brand image, or maybe you thought of a USP for your product, Or maybe you've put cash into new features or new functionality for your products, your goods, or your services. In that case, you have product differentiation. Your product stands out from the competitors. Therefore, this might enable you to be able to increase your prices. So that's another internal factor. You've put a lot of effort into making your product stand out, and therefore this could mean that you could increase your prices. Now, let's look at the external factors. So factors that are already outside of the business's control and how they could affect pricing decisions. So the first is competition. Competition is important because if you've got lots of competition, if you're in a competitive market, well, that means that you're probably going to have to reduce your prices to be competitive. And as a business grows, it might mean that their market share has increased. And if their market share has increased, it's likely there are less competitors. And if there's less competitors, you move in towards a market structure that's an oligopoly, or even better, if you're a business, a monopoly. And in that case, you are the only seller in the market. And if you're the only person that sells a product, only business that sells a product, it's likely that you might be able to increase your prices. So that might affect your pricing decisions of how much competition you've got. Number two is the extent of the law of demand. So that relationship between price and demand or sales. What is the extent of that? So if you've got high brand loyalty, so customers are very loyal to your particular brand, well, that might mean that you can increase your prices. For example, if you increase your prices by 10%, your sales may only fall by 1%. So you increase your prices by 10%, but your sales fall, yes, but only by 1%. And if that happens, well, that means that your revenue overall is increasing, and it's likely your profits will therefore increase. And that's because of the extent of that relationship between prices and sales, the percentage increase on either side. And that will make a difference to your pricing decisions. And number three is suppliers. And this is really important because you might have to source your raw materials or your components from a supplier. And what the prices are of these raw materials or components are going to affect your end price. So therefore they're going to affect your pricing decisions. For example, imagine you're making t-shirts and you're making t-shirts from cotton. You get your cotton from your supplier. But what if cotton prices have increased? Well, that's going to mean it costs you more to get that cotton. And it might be because you're now having to fork out more cash and it's increasing your costs, you might decide that you're going to pass this increased cost onto the customer. And therefore, you're going to pass it on to the customer by increasing your price. So maybe it leads to higher cotton price, leads to higher production costs, and therefore you will increase your prices accordingly. Number four is exchange rates, because exchange rates might be also related to your suppliers, because your supplier might not be in the UK. Your supplier might be outside the UK, and therefore you are exposed to what the exchange rate is. Remember, for exchange rates, the acronym to get you through it is SPICE. Strong pound, imports cheap, exports dear. And then just flip that around if it's a weak pound. Number five, the economy. The economy, if you look at it in a binary way, it's either booming or there's a recession. If it's booming, well, you might be able to increase your prices because if the economy is booming, more people have jobs, so there's lower unemployment. So therefore people have income to spend, so you can increase your prices. On the other hand, if there's a recession, then it's likely there's high unemployment, so people have less income to spend, there's less demand, so therefore you may have to reduce your prices to some extent. I hope that helps with pricing decisions. Remember, you've got internal factors and external factors. Factors that are in control of the business and out of control of the business. But all of these factors will change as the business grows. And in terms of pricing decisions, you want to relate that to those pricing strategies that you can remember. And please check out that video on pricing strategies if you're forgetting about all of them. I've done one for every single one. I hope that helps. Go to that exam and absolutely destroy this question. Good luck.